The council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans, service members, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. The clerk will now call the roll.
Councilor Cologne-Hayes. Here. Councilor Condon. Here. Councilor Crowe. Here. Councilor Luong. Here. Councilor McDonald. Here. Councilor O'Malley. Here. Councilor Seco. Here. Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Taylor. Here. Councilor Winslow. Here. Council President Linehan.
Here. Okay, under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that UMA Urban Media Arts will be recording this evening's meeting. We've also been notified that Malden News Network will also be recording this evening, so just be aware there will be audio and video recordings of tonight's meeting. First order of business.
Mayor Gary Christensen will appear before the council to provide an update on the fiscal year 2027 budget.
All rise to recognize the mayor. Mayor, you have the floor.
As you know, a week ago tonight, Malden residents voted down an increase in property taxes to help stabilize city finances and maintain city services. Although question 1A was defeated by a narrow margin of 124 votes, the community has spoken, and I respect the outcome. There is no interest in revisiting the past. Only a continued commitment to building a stable and sustainable financial foundation for Malden. I remain hopeful that we can set aside our differences and work together in the best interest of our community. Our team is now working on a proposed fiscal year 2027 budget. There has been some discussion about the need to revise the net school spending number for fiscal year 2025, and I'll comment more on that later. But let me assure you this: any representation that the budget situation is significantly better than what was presented is simply unsubstantiated by the facts. As I have stated, the greatest challenge in municipal budgeting, especially ours, is that the most significant line items are moving targets and continue to be, even as we undertook extensive efforts to educate the community about the financial challenges we were facing. For example, our anticipated savings from our transition to the GIC have always been estimates and will not be finalized until enrollment concludes in early May. We also did not know that Malden would experience a reduction of more than $5 million in state education aid from fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2027. Additionally, our Northeast Voc enrollment increased significantly, requiring a higher contribution than last year. None of these factors were known at the outset, yet each materially affects the city's financial outlook. This is, unfortunately, an inherently imprecise process, and again, one that remains a moving target. Regarding the net school spending deficit as another one of those many variables, the previously issued fiscal year 2025 end-of-year report will require an amendment to accurately reflect healthcare costs for school employees, which were unintentionally understated. This was a regrettable but honest human error, and we are reviewing additional internal controls to prevent similar issues in the future. It is also important to note that the year-end report is a highly detailed document drawing from multiple data sources, much of which is manually compiled into Excel spreadsheets and put together in a compressed timeframe. While I acknowledged it changed one of the many variables discussed in the public meetings, it did not result in new revenue. Rather, it just shifted the expense from the city side to the school side. But the overall structural deficit remains the same. Let me repeat that. The overall structural deficit remains the same. As I mentioned, our team is working diligently on a proposed budget. Eliminating the structural deficit was the purpose of the proposed override, and it remains the challenge before us now. We are working with department heads to address the cuts that will need to be made. Ultimately, the extent of those cuts will depend largely on how much the city utilizes in reserves. An unsustainable practice we must move away from in this budget. It is my goal to submit a proposed budget earlier than past years to allow for meaningful collaboration and input. I look forward to working together to strike the right balance for Malden. Make no mistake about it, there are no easy answers this year or in the years ahead. With less state aid and reduced federal support, inaction is not an option. I am committed to addressing these challenges head-on and to make decisions that strengthen this city for the long term rather than deferring them to the future. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the mayor for joining us. It's been my understanding that while the mayor's not able to join us to answer questions from the council, of course, we will have an opportunity to do that as our budget gets started in the next couple of weeks. And Of course, that doesn't mean that we can't have a discussion amongst ourselves, and I do have some lights on. I'm going to take Councilor Winslow first.
Yeah, I appreciate the mayor coming. I mean, I think certainly we all want to know a bit more about how the, the $1.6 million related to school department health care, that mistake was made, what staff was involved, and what steps are going to be done to make sure that does not happen. I mean, that's a pretty significant mistake, and, and I can understand it can be hard to work with Excel spreadsheets, and I don't know if someone was relying on it past year or whatever, but, really to get to the bottom of it, and so that we have, multiple, key people double checking the numbers is really important. It just really does make it hard, and, I too will respect the will of the voters as we go forward and consider the budget. I mean, one of the things we all have to realize is that there's not any true winners. There's going to be people who survive, and there's going to be people whose lives are significantly changed. I was laid off from the Redevelopment Authority back after the dot-com bust, so certainly know that my career took a bit of a while to get back on track, but certainly it changes the course of people's lives, and that's what will weigh on us, and that's what we have to deal with the next few months. But the voters have spoken, and that's up to us now and the mayor to deal with that. So thank you. Great.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. So yeah, my question to the mayor and the administration would be, when was the miscalculation first known? I think that's a really important number. Based on what I guess was talked about last night at the school committee, it sounds like it was in March, so just finding out when that happened would be helpful. And I can understand how finding out something like that would be concerning about how do you reveal that information. But I think that, I think we all, as a council as well as the community, deserve to know that information, at least to understand it better. I think the optics are challenging. And the other question I would ask is, I'm having a hard time understanding how insurance rates would impact this number, because I would just assume it would be how much did you spend in total or in part on insurance last year. So I just don't understand how the rates come into play. But I am also looking forward to learning more about this issue and others. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I also want to thank the mayor for coming in and giving us some basic information here. There has been obviously a memo that folks have seen that we've all received that outlines the specifics here. When I received this, my two questions were, so what is the impact on the choices before us? I'm glad that at least this is an error that works in our favor as opposed to against it. But what I heard from the comments at the school committee and what I understand about all of the structural problems that have created our budget deficit is that all those things continue. We don't have this catch-up payment. All those things continue, and they are greater than even had the voters chosen to pass the 1B, we still would have been facing cuts. And it doesn't change that reality either. So I think the big picture, from my perspective, remains the same. And certainly, this council has a role in financial oversight. That's a big part of what we're here to do, not just to approve the budget. And I am glad that the mayor took responsibility for the team, however that error was made. And I am glad to hear there's a plan to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I just will want to know what that is. I will want to make sure that we have some real clarity about how we're going to avoid that in the future, because this is, an honest mistake that is not about money moving in places or not being found. It's not an accounting issue, it's a reporting issue, but reporting issues are still important. So I just want to let folks know we will be meeting in the Finance Committee next week to scope out the many different conversations we need to have. Now that we've heard some setup from the mayor, that's going to be a great time for folks to also bring what are the questions that you want to make sure we spend time talking about. No one of us at the council table makes decisions. We're all responsible for doing that together. So I want to make sure that we are scoping out those conversations early so that we have time. I'm glad to hear we'll have a little bit more time than the typical mid-May presentation of the budget. And I would just echo my colleagues' reflections that it is going to be a tough budget. People are going to lose their jobs. This is why it was so important for the voters to weigh in, and now we know what the challenges ahead of us. So we'll have to have a lot more conversations like this and do what we can to mitigate those losses without just getting ourselves back into a structural hole that we cannot get out of. So we'll talk a lot more next week, I'm sure, about this process.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor Cologne-Hayes.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, now we know where we stand after this vote, and I appreciate the mayor showing up. I do wish he would have stayed for some questions. I understand there's probably not a lot of answers right now, but at least to answer some questions that I had. So I'll save those for another time, but we definitely need to obviously figure out what happened here. Nobody wants to beat someone when they make an error. We've all done that before, but we definitely need to know where it came from to be sure that it doesn't happen again. And one of the things that I love to hear, I listened to the school committee, I tried to make it, but I couldn't, but I did listen to it, and they did pass the audit, the same audit that we had passed here, a DLS audit. So that made me very happy that they're going to do an audit as well. So the both of us looking into it is definitely a good thing. And also that we're going to be meeting earlier because there's going to be a lot of stuff that we need to discuss, and I'm glad to hear that we're meeting earlier. I think it's going to be very helpful. The finance team's going to be very busy. We're all going to be very busy. So we should be showing up definitely as a team and trying to get through this because you're right. There are going to be layoffs. It's hard. I'm sure we've all been through a layoff at some time in our life. It's not easy, but we need to hold each other accountable, and we need to figure out what happened here to build trust back up that I believe we lost during this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cologne-Hayes. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I mean, most of us spoke already. I was just gonna, you know, if I had gotten the mic a little earlier, I would have just said maybe we should just wait and talk about these things as we grow into them. No doubt about it that we've got some serious work ahead of us, and we've all got to kind of roll up our sleeves now and do our due diligence to make sure, because we're all in this thing together. So, you know, the bill didn't pass, so now we've got to kind of like, you know, figure out what we're going to do here. And without a doubt, there's going to be some layoffs here, and I know there's some, you know, money can come from the revenue reserve. I've reached out to a couple of counselors already and let them know what my ideas were on being able to make up some shortfalls, pretty much a one-time thing, so it'll get us through another year, hopefully, if it works out. So we all got to start to, you know, look around and see how we can all work this thing out together, because that's where we are. We're all in this thing together. I wish the mayor would have stayed around a little bit longer. I don't know if Marie is the point person tonight to talk about any of these things, and that's why I would just say that I think we should just wait until we start to take things up in your committee, Councilor McDonald, in the Finance Committee, so that we do have some of these questions and answers tonight, because it's just, it makes no sense for us to bring them up now if the mayor's not here to answer them. So, I mean, like I said, unless, Maria, if you're going to answer some of these questions that some of these councilors have, I would just say we have a full docket tonight, so we should probably get onto the docket. And just to let the citizens know that we all should be working together on this thing, along with the mayor's office, on seeing if we can roll up our sleeves and see if we can get as few of layoffs as possible and few of cuts as possible, and can think out of the box on ways of generating some new revenue and some maybe even long-term revenue. And we've done this before. I've done this before on some other budget crunches. So, you know, I'd like to try and do it again. And like I said, I've reached out to some of the councilors. It would have never made it because we would have needed a home rule petition to do it before the ballot question for March 31st. But now we do have time enough to get it for next year's budget. As you can hear the mayor say, that it's going to be a multi-tier type of years coming up on the budget as far as being able to be fiscally responsible and watching our pocketbook. So again, you know, I wish I would have spoke a little bit sooner. It's just the way it falls, right? But I think that where we have a full agenda tonight, I think it's probably important for us to get to that agenda than to be talking about things that we don't have any answers for right now. And I'm sure we will find them in your budget committees and joint committees as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Simonelli. Councilor Luong.
Thank you so much. I just, I echo what everybody else has said, but I didn't, so not to recap, but I did want to bring up two things that I hope that we will be looking at the Finance Committee. One would be our municipal audit company that we have. Why wasn't this type of error found during our audit? Other things, what's the path? How did we do things? We have a checks and balances in this city, and how did that all break down? And I hope we spend some time to really look at that. Because, to hear about a $1.6 million, mistake or whatever you want to call it, 2 days after the vote, and then I find out on Facebook, wasn't fun, obviously. But I really look forward to, delving into those things as we, go next week. And, we have a lot of work to do, and we've all said this. The public does not trust us. They don't trust our processes. They don't trust what we say. But we need to really do a lot of work to bring that back. I do have to say, the mayor and his team have applied for the DLS financial review. That did include the Malden Public Schools as part of that review. It was approved. It's docketed, or queued, I think they call it, queued, right? They queued it in for the fall. So, and that's by the state. That's not us. We asked for it as soon as possible, and that's what they gave us. So I think going through the budget process, seeing where our processes are, and then letting them come in and do their thing, I think it's going to go a long way to hopefully that repairs. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, I see Councilor O'Malley for a second time.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask my fellow counselors if my understanding of this was correct. Because I know that we had the two different ballot question numbers. One was the 5.4 and one was the 8.2. And so my understanding was that 8.2 took into consideration in part, this $1.6 million that we had to spend above and beyond the normal net school spending, because it was like, air quotes, a penalty. And so I do think that this is $1.6 million that we're not having to spend more. So it's a savings, but it's a savings from our free cash, from our savings account, the $22 million. So the circumstances are not great. They bring up a lot of questions, but as has been stated, I think it is a $1.6 million savings from what we were expecting to spend. That's just my understanding, and if I'm wrong, it would just be helpful, but I think I heard something different, and I just want to make sure I understand it correctly so the public also does.
Okay. I see a light by Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, I think that I heard two things that you were asking about, Councilor O'Malley. My understanding is that, yes, this does improve the situation, right? It works in our favor. And the place that it improves it to is still, $9 million. I mean, that's to be expected, because all of the structural factors that created an $8.5 million deficit this year are still in place, and without taking that $1.6 million into account. So it's, it's best. I think of this as a liability of if we don't spend this, we get billed by the state. So we avoid this bill that we would have had to pay for either out of reserves or out of operating funds and income. I don't know where that would have come from. We hadn't gotten that far yet. But I do want to be clear that when we talked about this in the Finance Committee, that was part of why it was definitely one of the factors we used in talking about why a second tier was important to raise with voters. And we talked about other factors too. We talked about the increase in net school spending requirement for the future, not the look back, but what do we expect in the future? And we said, we don't know how bad that's going to be. Well, that got significantly worse when we got the numbers from the state. And I will just speak for myself that part of the reason I thought it was important to have a second tier was the uncertainty that went along with all of these figures. So there were some that we had good estimates, that we thought we had good estimates about, and there were some that we thought we had less good estimates about. But I think that I just really want to state again, yeah, this helps maybe it would have been a $10.5 million gap instead of a $9 million gap if we hadn't been able to find this error. And I'm very glad that we did. And we will talk, I'm sure, more about that entire process. So it improves. The place it improves to is still worse. I don't know how we would have funded that additional piece because we hadn't gotten there yet. And again, I think the reason that the numbers had been created, the different steps had been created, had multiple inputs because there was so much uncertainty around many of these factors that we knew we had to consider. So that's my understanding.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor Cologne Hayes for the second time.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just wanted to respond to the question because I think it was actually, I think I made that motion in finance for the second question. And so for me, that's exactly what it was based on. So once we heard there was a shortfall, 1.6 shortfall plus a penalty, what they call it, we added that up along with other numbers that Councilor McDonald just said, and we thought, this is what we're looking at, right? So we should, instead of coming back, like just passing the shorter one, the lower one, and come back again because we're still going to need it with these numbers, we decided to put the second number on there. Obviously now in hindsight, which, we didn't know then, it would have made it probably easier because the lower amount did better in the vote. So I don't know. Maybe that if people didn't hear us say, oh no, we found this 1.6, maybe more trust in passing the other one. But I mean, we'll never know that. But that was my thought process of adding that other, question. It was definitely based on those numbers that are now not right. So that's not great, but that's where we are. But thank you for asking that.
Thank you, Councilor Cologne Hayes. Councilor Luong for the second time.
Quick question, this is to Councilor McDonald, not sure if you know the answer, but when we didn't spend the over 1.6 million and we received a penalty, do you know if we would charge the penalty? And if so, would we still be charged a penalty at 62,000?
Yeah.
Do you know that?
So I think that goes into the calculations of what we owe for next year. We need to make that up. So we hadn't gotten to making it up yet, right? We hadn't got there. And I want to actually be clear, there's another piece of this whole calculation that is the penalty, which is the underspending relative to the target of how far away we are from the dream scenario that the state has for us for how much local money we can spend. So we talked about both of those things in the Finance Committee. So we hadn't paid it yet.
Okay.
This is a kind of retrospective report that takes effect for the following year. And so in checking these numbers over, I think my understanding is that's how this error was discovered. So we're going to figure that out more. How do we make sure that we catch these things earlier? How do we make sure that we have the people in place who are going to be able to reliably generate these reports? All of those questions, those are the process questions. But I don't think this changes the money out the door. And also to your earlier point, I'm curious what the auditors will say, but I don't believe this is an accounting issue because no money moved. It's a reporting issue that the state would have sent us a bill for. But because no money moved or was expected to move at this point, it's not the kind of thing that auditors would even be taking a look at because they're not looking at our state reporting, they're looking at our accounts. So that would be my understanding. I'd love to know if that is correct. But I do want to also just note that, I mean, we have a lot of conversations about trust at this table, and trust is a big word that means a lot of different things to a lot of people. But to me, what it means is keeping your promises and being trustworthy. And I think we all have a role in trying to promote enough trust that we can have basic conversations about the trade-offs we actually have to make. And that we do not use shredding trust to avoid the hard conversations and make it seem like we don't have to make choices. We do. The voters chose. And now we have to grapple with that. So I hope whatever questions we want to put on the table, that we as city leaders are doing that in a way that helps, yes, us build trust and be trustworthy and raise those questions in good faith. I certainly hear us trying to do that tonight, but we all know that that has not always been the case. I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to make it through this difficult set of choices. So I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you both for that. I just want to say from the chair to echo some of the things that have been said. I think all of us are feeling a little bit challenged by this because this has been a tough week. You know, a lot of us have given up most of our free time with our families to try to educate the community on what's been a very difficult vote. You know, we now have a budget that's a lot more difficult than we were hoping it was going to be. I think we're working as hard as we can to accelerate the timeline and to work a lot earlier than we typically do with harder circumstances to be able to make decisions that none of us want to be up here having to make. And this is certainly not information that any of us wanted to be receiving, certainly not right after an election. And having to communicate this to the community is, I will say personally, was really, really difficult. You know, some folks have mentioned finding out on social media. That's not how anybody wants to find out something, certainly not something this difficult. And I think to the extent that we can all row in the same direction and try to promote that trust, I think is what we have to focus on moving ahead. I'm certainly committed to that. I feel like I'm in constant communication with the mayor's office. This is just going to be a tremendously difficult spring and summer as we move into this budget cycle. I'm working as hard as I can. I know Councilor McDonald and I also speak so frequently about how we're going to be transparent and make these meetings accessible to the public. That's something that we're trying to make a commitment to and to bring our colleagues in and make sure that this meeting process is something that everybody can feel invested in. I will say that folks have been very, very communicative with me, the ideas that folks have shared already. I mean, you know, even just at the morning after the vote failed, folks picked up the phone and, you know, we're all at work the next day trying to get back to our regular life, and people are brainstorming, what can we do? How can we mitigate the impact of this? How can we do everything we can to make sure the community is as safe and healthy as possible? And I want to appreciate that publicly because I want folks in the community to hear how hard everybody up here is working to try to come up with solutions in this hard set of circumstances that we face. So I want to thank everybody for the comments tonight. Obviously, this is not the conversation that we all wanted to be having. I do appreciate that the mayor came in. I do wish that we could have asked questions, but I also recognize we may not have answers to all the questions that we want at this juncture. I know that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to convene in committee. I hope that we can really dig into things. I know it's not going to be easy, but I hope that we can get to that when we start those budget meetings. So seeing no other lights, I'm going to say that we can move on to our next order of business, and I appreciate all the dialogue that we had here, so thank you. Next order of business is public comment. Public comment is allowed under council rules. Each speaker is limited to the subject matter relevant to this evening's agenda, and speakers must keep their comments to 2 minutes or less. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for public comment this evening?
We actually do. Mohammed Ubata.
Oh, let me put the podium light on. Mohammed Abu Taha, you have the floor.
190
Yes,
Mountain.
thank you.
190 Mountain Avenue.
My name is Mohammed Abu Taha. I live at 190 Mountain Avenue. Like many residents, I voted no on the tax override, not because I don't support the services of the city or the school, but because many families in our community are already struggling to keep up with the rising costs. For them, another tax increase right now would have been a real burden. The voters have spoken clearly. Now responsibility shifts to all of us, the city leaders and residents, to work together on real solutions. We need transparency, we need accountability, and most importantly, we need a clear plan. Residents want to understand what went wrong on the budget, what steps are being taken to fix it, and how we will move forward without placing more pressure on working families. This is not about blame. This is about trust, responsibility, and leadership. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, did we receive any items by email?
We did. So we have a comment that was submitted by Brian DeLacy of 1 Earl Street regarding agenda item number 4. The clerk received a written public comment from Brian DeLacy of Malden News Network, accompanied by a full written statement containing 16 numbered questions. The submitter asks that the full document be entered into the record and that the mayor be asked to respond to each question on the record tonight or in writing within a reasonable and publicly stated time frame, and that the following be read. The submission documents the following timeline. September 2025, mayor proposes a $5.4 million override. December 2025, the mayor arrives unannounced with his full financial team, introduces a new $1.6 million school spending crisis, and the override jumps to $8.2 million. March 2026, both questions fail. April 2026, 2 days after the election, a memo revises the $1.6 million shortfall to $62,730. A reporting error. Fixable with the journal entry, no voter authorization required. The 16 questions fall into 4 categories. On the books, when was the error identified and who found it and who verified the $1.6 million before it went on the ballot? On the disclosure, why were the full council, the press, and the public the last to know? On the audit, have corrected entries been made? Has the external auditor been informed? On the budget going forward, the finance chair now projects a gap north of $9 million. What is driving that number? Was it known in December? The central question is this: if the error had been found before March 31st, would the second ballot question to raise their taxes by $8.2 million have existed at all? The full written statement is in the record. The submitter asks that the mayor respond to all 16 questions on the record. Thank you. Brian DeLacy, Malden News Network.
Thank you. Okay, next order of business. Next order of business is the consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of meeting minutes to be approved and 10 petitions to be referred to the License Committee. Does any counselor have a desire to remove any of these items from the consent agenda for the purpose of further discussion?
Motion to grant.
Okay.
Approve, sorry.
Hearing none and seeing none, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Counselor Sika, seconded by Counselor Winslow. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next order of business.
Paper 196-26, order that the Finance Committee engage in discussions regarding the city's current self-insured status and consider possible options for a comprehensive insurance policy. The discussions shall include costs involved, cash reserves needed, and procedures required for any updates to our current status. And this was sponsored by Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Okay, Counselor Cologne Hayes for the paper.
Thank you very much. So a couple of weeks ago, I had noticed there was a lot of questions about our insurance policies and what we've, what we do here for the city. And I put in an original paper, so we went back and forth with language with Mr. Rannigan and Mr. Hogan. And I'd like to, I can talk about it a little bit, but I also wanted to make it ask for a vote to amend the wording. So basically what we're looking for, we are, we're self-insured on, let's say, our automobiles. We have different insurance for other things. So rather than just hold the conversation to just a limited view, we wanted to open it up, hear from our insurance agent from the city, our finance people, our city solicitor, have them all present and discuss, learn about what we have, and then discuss possible ways, if any, that we can move forward with other insurances that might, work better for us than being self-insured. So the wording that Mr. Hogan had worked with me on to change. So this is what I would like to ask, to suggest it be changed to, did we read in the original one? Should
We
do that
did,
first?
yes.
Okay, so the suggested change is that the Finance Committee engage in discussions with the city's finance and legal team, as well as a representative from the insurance company to discuss the city's current insurance policy. So it's broader because we didn't want to limit it and, because if something comes up that we want to talk about, we wanted to have in that. I also talked to our finance chair, our council president before putting this forward, so.
Okay, so you're making a motion to amend.
Amend.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend as stated by Counselor Cologne Hayes, seconded by Counselor Sika. Does everybody understand what the amendment entails? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Would you email me that exact language?
Yes.
Because you read it so fast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we'll email the language to the
New
clerk.
York committee came out.
Okay. Are you all set with introducing? Okay, so I'm going to take some lights with questions on the paper. Counselor Winslow.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I did after I was laid off from the redevelopment authority, actually set up a law practice where part of my practice was dealing with municipal liability issues like this. And one of the things that Mass Municipal Association has a program called MAIA, which is an insurance program for municipalities. And one of the things I learned at that time was basically it did not cover cities over, I think, 60,000 or whatever. Malden could not qualify, Lynn or Somerville could not qualify. It's really set up for, towns that have smaller, legal staffs, or maybe not much at all. Just a lot of towns and even some cities just have outside legal counsel. They don't have staff attorneys. And it was also very interesting to get the perspective of where public entities look at insurance. So one key and one role our legal department does is not just about lawsuits. A big thing they do is risk management. So an entity like the MBTA actually has someone called a risk manager in addition to their legal staff. So so it's just something, it is complex. And then when I worked in Somerville and was looking at getting, they didn't have a municipal insurance policy. And the difficulty is sometimes you can kind of get one-off policies for a issue that you have. But when you look at, and this is what we can talk about with our insurance agency, when you get an all-in insurance policy, there's a question of cost and value. I mean, you are ultimately an insurance policy at the heart of it is just a guarantee to be able to hire outside legal counsel to pay your bills to defend something sometimes. So, so that is, and then there's also liability limits of how much that insurance covers. So it's a complex thing to see whether it is worth it or not. So that's the type of thing. It might seem, but because municipalities, it's not, you're not making like, there's not like millions of people like homes and cars that balances out. It's very specific. So it's more complicated than you're signing up for an auto insurance policy or something like that. So that's just something I'd be happy to sit in on those. So, but let's look at it. Doesn't hurt. It'd be good to get an update and hear what that is. I mean, something I dealt a little bit with MRA too. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor McDonald.
Thanks. I just wanted to clarify for the public what I know from our exchange earlier, but this paper is not about health insurance. Because some folks had asked me, well, aren't we moving away from being self-insured? Which we are for the health insurance pool. This is actually about property and casualty insurance, general liability insurance, directors and officers insurance, those kinds of other types of insurance products, cybersecurity insurance that you can carry. And so I'm happy to have us have some discussion about it. I know the city does carry some limited policies, and also we, as Councilor Winslow was saying, it can be challenging for municipalities to carry the kind of insurance that private businesses and organizations are able to buy on the open market for a range of reasons. So I'm happy to have us talk about that in the Finance Committee. I just want to make sure folks knew that we've already made choices about the health insurance. They're not revisiting that, but we are talking about this, whether purchasing additional insurance coverage, basically, as I understand the question, is a good use of resources and worth it at the moment. And so look forward to talking about that.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank Councilor Clone-Hayes for bringing this forward. My understanding in my time on the council is that we were self-insured across the board. So I wasn't actually aware that we had any insurance policies. I was under the impression that we were, like I said, self-insured for our health insurance, that we were self-insured for auto, that we were self-insured for everything. So to hear that there are insurance policies was news to me. And so I think it is helpful for us to better do a deep dive into this, like what insurance policies do we have, and does it make sense for us to have more, whether it's, I think maybe the ones we have might be property insurance, but does it make sense to have liabilities, errors and omissions, an umbrella policy if something happens? I don't know. As Councilor Winslow had identified, it really has to do as a cost-benefit analysis. But I don't think that's going to be a very hard cost-benefit analysis to do. You just look back the last 10 years, how much money did you spend in lawsuits, and how much is an insurance premium going to cost? I think it kind of helps us decide, does it make sense for us to get insurance so that we don't have to pay out of pocket? And the benefit, as Councilor Winslow identified, is that you're not using the resources of our local council in-house. Because the insurance company has a really big incentive to not pay that claim, and so they're going to defend you tooth and nail. That's the whole way that they keep the money. They cover you, and they try not to have to pay out any claims that you might be liable for. That's all they do. They don't have to worry about all of the myriad things that our in-house legal counsel has to do. I don't know if it's going to pan out in the end, but having the conversation is really helpful. Thank you, Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Cologne Hayes again.
Thank you. Just quickly, yeah, I should have probably mentioned that to those listening. It's not health insurance. But also, the reason why we didn't put all the specifics that you're bringing up about our insurance is just because this is an open conversation. We didn't want to make sure like things weren't left out, and that we did learn. It's going to be a learning experience about exactly what we have and then what we need. And it is, to Councilor Winslow's point, we know it's complicated. That's why we're having our solicitor, our, the people who deal with this come before us to give us an overview before we get into any discussions, because we're all going to be learning. I talked to, we're small business owners, my husband and I spoke with him, and he was talking about how the reason why they get a big liability insurance for exactly what Councilor O'Malley was saying, so that when something happens, he's an architect firm, so like big major mistakes can happen there. They're not fighting it, hiring a lawyer. They pay so that other people can fight that for them, and it works out well. But it might not work out for us. That's the whole point of we're having a conversation. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will be looking for a voice vote, or you want to refer this to Finance Committee, is that right? Okay, so on a motion by Councilor Cologne Hayes, seconded by Councilor Sika, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That is referred to Finance. Next order of business.
Paper 197-26, be it ordained by the Malden City Council that the Code of the City of Malden, 6.08.070C2, licensing of marijuana establishments, is hereby amended by inserting, provided that no fewer than 5 marijuana retail licenses shall be made available after Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 15. Also sponsored by Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Okay, Councilor Cologne Hayes for the paper.
Thank you very much. I won't be changing any wording in this one. So a while back, I had noticed while I was doing some research on the city website that there was a number, the cannabis license number that usually said 5 for the amount of license that we had changed to 4. So I reached out to Mr. Hogan to understand how that happened, when it happened, and why weren't we aware of that. And so our ordinance states that it's based on our amount of cannabis licenses is based on the amount of liquor licenses that we have. And the liquor licenses in Malden dropped below to a point where it affected our cannabis licenses to 4. And we just didn't hear about that. I guess there's not a clear way of letting us know when that happened, because I had reached out to the council president also. We none of us were aware. So we were talking about ways to clarify that, and the language suggested so that we don't want to keep having to pay attention to when liquor license can go up and down. They can fluctuate. And so rather than keep a constant eye on that to keep our 5, we figured to put in the wording that says, provided that, so still going by the alcohol licenses, liquor license, but providing that no fewer than 5 marijuana licenses shall be made available, so we don't run into that problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Cologne Hayes. I see a light from Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually support that, and I think that we should be made aware of when the licenses drop or go up, indicating on whether or not we have how many liquor stores in the geographical area. I'll give you an example. In my neighborhood alone, I got like 4 liquor stores, but I can't have one. Not to go back to this thing again, but I don't have one marijuana shop in my neighborhood, but I have 4 liquor stores. So I don't know how that all works out. But I think that all being said, I think it's a good paper. I will support that paper. I think that we should be made aware of it, especially right now. And I know that the marijuana sales, I mean, I haven't seen the numbers, but according to what everybody tells me, that the numbers haven't, aren't what they were supposed to be or what they want them to be. Nevertheless, they still are numbers. So under these trying times, we should make sure that we're aware of when those numbers go up or go down, just so we're aware of it. And so I don't know how that even helps. I don't know how that helps or hurt us with a lawsuit too. I think we've got another one coming in too from the other one from the one on Taylor Street, the corner of Taylor. Not to, I don't want to mention any more about that, but I'm sure it's coming in. So I don't know how that affects us that way. Again, very confusing, but we should be made aware of it. How we do that, what is it, the CLAC board?
The
CLAC board? I mean, they should just let our license committee chairman know when those things go up and down, and, Councilor Seeker could advise us on occasion when they go up and down. I don't think that's a big thing to ask.
Why you?
No, I'm just saying. Well, because she's the chairman at the time. If it's Mickey Mouse next year, then it's Mickey Mouse. But I'm saying for now, it's JD and Seeker. So I'm just saying she should be the one. She's in charge of license for us, right? Why not? Just to keep us up to speed.
Thank you, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Can I just say
Oh,
something?
yeah, sure. You
yeah,
want to
I'll defer.
respond?
I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
defer.
That's fine.
I'll defer.
Okay.
So really quickly, I'm not quite sure that falls under the purview of my license committee. I think that that number probably changed because it's directly comes down from how many package stores we have in the city.
Correct.
So if the package stores fluctuate, then I would assume the cannabis licenses would also fluctuate. So if we don't have the exact amount that we need, then it would go down. So I'm pretty sure it went from 5 to 4 because package licenses went down. When we were discussing this in 2018, I think we were going back and forth between 4 and 5, and we were at 4.5. But based on if I remember, based on the amount of package stores we had, we were at 4.5. So we, as the council, could have chose to go to 4 or chose to go to 5. We got to pick. And I think at that time, we went to 5, but since then, it's been several years, maybe the package stores declined, and hence why it went from 5 to 4. And so I don't necessarily think that I should be made aware as the chair of license. I think it would be nice for the council. I mean, I did know that happened, but I'm in constant contact with, the CLEC with this, all different stuff going on. So I was aware that changed because our package stores went down. So maybe just, moving on, if we can just ask them if it was to ever happen again, if our package stores keep decreasing and it decreases more. But if we're gonna have 4, it's not like we're gonna go down to 3 when we have 4. We're gonna keep it at the 4, am I correct? If we ended up getting 5 licenses and our package stores keep declining, we're not going to change it from the 5. We can't decrease it from the 5 when we currently have 5. Am I correct, Nelson? Does that sound right? Okay. All right. So, yeah. So thank you.
Understood.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councilor Sika. Councilor O'Malley. Oh, you want to respond. Councilor O'Malley, are you okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. Again, good information. I have no problem with it. I'm just saying that would be that's where I think it would go for us as the license committee, so we can be informed about it. It's probably simple as just a memo letting us know. But right now, like I said, under these trying times, I mean, just what Councilor Seeker just said, and I know she's been on top of this stuff, it's confusing. And when people are asking for answers right now from us, and we're talking about, being transparent with people, and they're expecting 5 licenses, and then we're down to 4. We want to be able to have the answers for them. That's all I'm saying. So I think that when things like this do happen, there should be a mechanism to allow this council to be aware of when, the liquor store formula increases, decreases, so that changes the outcome from the marijuana status and stuff like that. We should have that information, because you know when people ask us out there, like, oh, what are they doing with the proceeds as they're getting for the marijuana sales and stuff? I mean, as a city council, you should have the ability to be able to answer those questions. And I think that's a good way of knowing about it. And again, it just seemed like there was a situation just a few minutes ago on us not being able to get this information. And I thought that was just a good way of doing it. If that's not the right mechanism, then fine, let's figure out another one. But we should be made aware of when the formula changes to see if the license is going to go from 5 to 4, from 5 to 6, from 4 to 3, who knows? But I think we should be made aware of it. That's all. Thank you, Council President.
And I hear you, and I think I can make sure to work with the clerk so that we can get the information. I think Councilor Sika is doing her due diligence and has package
doubt.
stores and an overlay and probably, you know, a little bit more incentive to stay on top
That's
of
right.
it as well. But we can make sure to get that information so everybody has it. I don't think we need a paper to necessarily
Yeah,
do
perfect.
that. Okay. Councilor O'Malley, thank you for your patience. You have the floor.
Yeah, I think it was a good dialogue and discussion. And I think if I understand correctly, what Councilor Cologne is stating is that she would like to move it away from a purely percentage-based formula to a fixed number so that there's not this ambiguity. What I would say is that works for it going down, but it doesn't work for it going up. So we have to have at least 20%. So what I would say is probably what the language should be is 5 or 20%, whichever is greater, something like that, so that there's a floor but not a ceiling, because if we end up having a ton of package stores that open up, probably not going to happen, but it could, that would require maybe more than 5. So I appreciate that. The reason why I was putting my light on, though, is that one of the things I'd asked the council president and our legal department is to give us an update on DRIS and on benevolent, without going into anything privileged. On March 25th, there was a status conference with DRIS, and then benevolent tuned in, and I've requested the transcript in audio.
Councilor O'Malley, I don't think this is relevant or appropriate to talk about on this paper, though.
Yeah, I'm going to explain why it's relevant, because.
Can you do that very quickly? Because I fear it's not really relevant.
Oh, yeah, no, it has to do with our marijuana ordinance. So basically, I requested the transcript in audio. I found the transcript as part of a legal filing, but I think the audio is really important for y'all to hear what's going on in reality. Basically, the judge has serious concerns about what we're doing in terms of how we're handling the rewriting of our
I don't think this is appropriate.
Ordinance. Yeah, it's just because we're talking about rewriting the ordinance, and I'm just saying.
about numbers, though.
No, correct, but.
Just a number.
We're not talking about the DRIS suit right now. This is not docketed.
Correct. And
Councilor O'Malley, can you put in a paper and we can talk about this next week?
which is my next thing. We have to respond by April 22nd, and so I would ask.
We don't have to respond to anything that we don't have a legal communication about.
Yeah, so we have to respond as a city by April 22nd, and I would ask that next week we have a meeting to discuss the fact that something in our name has to be filed on April 22nd.
So I just want to be really clear that you're talking about something that our legal department has received, not that this council has received.
That the city of Malden must respond to.
But
And it's related to.
what you're saying right now makes it seem to the public like the council is in receipt of something that necessitates us to hold a meeting.
That is true.
That is not correct, or we would have scheduled a meeting.
My understanding is that the city, our legal department, has to come to us based on what was represented in court for guidance about what will happen on April 22nd. Thank you. So as we're rewriting our zoning.
Okay, we are not going to discuss this particular
That's
issue
fine.
any further, but if it's appropriate and if we do need to take action on it, we either need a paper or we need for legal to speak to me about it. So I'm not going to allow further discussion on DRIS right now, but I don't want us to talk about this anymore.
Understood. And
Okay.
it just had to do with the rewriting of the ordinance.
But I actually don't think it's pertinent or appropriate because we're not talking about,
Ordinances that we're talking about.
right, it's two separate things. I don't want to stifle debate on this and we have other lights. And
Okay.
if we want to talk about this, we need to have it properly before us.
Okay, so then I'm gonna, just so I understand, through the chair and the clerk, I'm gonna ask that we put that on the agenda next week. I will copy and paste a similar posting from a prior one, and I will submit
Please
it.
communicate to legal and myself and the clerk, and we can handle that offline
Great.
tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So I have two other lights, and then I do want to take the vote to refer this to ordinance. Counselor Winslow.
Yeah, just a couple things. Yeah, I mean, this is, about 7 or 8 years ago when this is really offered by Councilor Matheson at that time. So, and we knew what, exactly what Councilor Sika said. It was like, we're at 4.5 at that time. And everybody kind of understood that it might be 5. So, so I think it is, now that I always thought it was tied to how many we could have and how many we actually had. So I didn't think that it was something that would actually go down, but I guess it does, the way it works. So, so that is one of the things. So it makes sense to make it clear that, we kind of had set a floor and not have kind of this weird fluctuation. But it was sort of the intent of the council, we might have up to 5 at that time when Councilor Matheson proposed this, and I think that passed. It was sort of one of the first things we took and related to, recreational cannabis. The other thing is, we do have coming out of rules and ordinance, the papers related to the zoning and this section of just the regular code, section 12, related to cannabis and cannabis establishments. So, I don't know whether we, I guess it's some of the timing of that is something we got to think about, is obviously something on zoning has to go to a joint rules and ordinance committee and planning, and there are actually something that's coming out of ordinance is actually related to this section too. So I don't know whether, I know Councilor Colin Hayes reached out to me and said how to do this, and I just said, put it on, we weren't going to amend what was coming out of, it just has made sense to have it different than what's coming out of rules and ordinance. So, but we should sync them up. We should probably end up, I don't know, my intent in rules and ordinance, if it gets referred, is that we would ultimately sync up and, go through the process of getting the hearings for this section 12 zoning changes for the, related to the, what we need to do to update our zoning because of the, beneficial benevolent botanicals decision, and then a vote, sort of at the same time on section 12 changes and section 6 changes. So that would be, just let you know what the process I see going ahead, so, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Winslow. Counselor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with Councilor Winslow. I think we should take that paper up again, but I think that, the paper has already been taken up. I think it may have died in committee, and I think it was Council President Amanda Lenahan's paper originally, because I know that when we were discussing this thing when I first got on, and, there was talk about, Driz opening up on Taylor Street, so I kind of went through that thing, and we went back and forth for a little while. No, I'm saying, I think that if that's what he wants to do is resurrect that paper, move it forward for the future so we can start working on that, if that's what he wants to do.
We really can't talk about Driz.
Darren, make a motion, please.
Okay.
I'll second it. I will second her motion.
Thank you.
All right, on a motion by Counselor Colin Hayes, seconded by Counselor Sika to refer to ordinance, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is referred. Next order of business.
Paper 198-26, be it ordained by the Malden City Council that the Code of the City of Malden 12.12.030 Use Regulations is hereby amended as follows to update the existing table of use regulations by striking the N designation for self-storage facilities in Industrial 1 and Industrial 2 zoning districts and inserting in place thereof the SP designation. This amendment shall restore the status of such use of self-storage facilities to its state prior to the 2023 amendment, as was ordained with Paper 198, Series of 2023, and shall take effect upon its passage following the completion of the public hearing process as required by MGL Chapter 48, Section 5. Councilor Sika is the sponsor.
Okay, Counselor Sika for the paper.
Thank you, Council President. So really quickly, I'm going to just briefly talk about why this paper's on the agenda, and then I'm hoping to refer it to committee. I did ask our building commissioner, Nelson, to come to the meeting tonight, just in case anybody had any questions before we refer it. But it's been brought to my attention that we have two self-storage units that are currently operating in the city of Malden. One is on Easton Ave at the old Hostess, the U-Haul, and one is in my ward up on Route 1 on Linehurst behind the Kathy's. They are both looking currently to expand their business, and the zoning that we changed a few years back prevents them from doing that. So I'm hoping to maybe make some provisions to what we voted on before to allow, self-storage units that are currently already in business in the city of Malden to be able to come before the planning board for a special permit to expand what they currently have. In no way, shape, or form am I looking to change, the way you guys voted years ago. I think I might have been the lone person who voted against it, but it is what it is. I'm okay being that lone person on that island. But I don't want to hinder two businesses that we currently have operating here in the city, especially the one in my ward on Linehurst. No one even knows it's in Malden. It's the perfect place for a self-storage unit to be put. Can I have Nelson come up and just throw some 2 cents in before you take questions?
Sure, Nelson, you
Come
can
on up, Nelson. You can say that so much better than I can. And I have not heard from anybody. They actually contacted the building office, so he'll be able to.
Okay, Nelson, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Nelson Miller, Building Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when the change was made a few years back, which prohibited storage facilities in the city, the way our zoning works, when you prohibit a use entirely, you also prohibit the expansion of that use. That's the way our zoning reads. So just as an example, if you have a storage facility and it were completely destroyed, let's say in a fire, you could get a special permit to build it back the way it was. But in this case, with these two facilities where they have existing buildings they want to make larger, our zoning doesn't allow, there's no mechanism to move forward and make them larger. So Councilor Sika, asked about how to sort of alter our zoning to allow the expansion. And then we also had the discussion about, allowing new ones in other places. You don't have to do both. You could craft this ordinance, if you didn't want to allow the new ones in new locations, you could craft it to just allow the existing ones to expand, through a special permitting process, through the planning board or through the city council, however you want to do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have a lot of lights. Okay, I'm going to go to Councilor Winslow first.
Yeah, I mean, this, I appreciate that, some of the thought behind this, but, it's just back in 2023 where we had a discussion. So, at that time, we had just, in Ward 6, we had just had a pretty big property, a storage thing. And one of the things that really concerned me about that business was sitting here and hearing the businesses joke about they're in the business of death, displacement, and divorce. And displacement is really about when people get evicted. And I thought, is this the type of businesses we should be really to encourage and expanding? And that was really, hey, we got the new one, but I think it is the type of thing of, we are planning to do a master plan, and we now do have an economic development committee. So I think it's the type of thing of these, whether this really fits into the plan for the master plan. Like, I am a bit concerned about the one, the U-Hauls next to the trail. They're good, tenants there. They help out with the fridge and stuff like that. But another storage building on Eastern Avenue is exactly, I think, what we didn't want to see. So, and a bigger one. These are, I think that's the type of thing. We're missing potential. So I really think that's kind of my view. I think maybe, we got to think about it a little bit more as a council So my suggestion was, and I reached out to Councilor Seco, of maybe having the Economic Development Committee look to make some decision about what we do. I mean, we're trying to get some more tax revenue, so this is, the reality is this is where, the only things people might be building, besides data centers or something like that. But I would sort of put that to the Economic Development Committee to weigh, what do we do in the short term and what do we held off? I mean, one part of a master plan is to say there's going to be some different things that are going to happen. So that's really, just my concern, that we are on this track to get high quality commercial development that is more valuable. I mean, talking about hotels and other type of things that not only generate property tax, but generate other things. So it's something that, that's part of what we didn't want to see Malden become, all this, have the storage places that are getting forced out of Cambridge and Somerville because they're doing great development, come here. So it is the type of thing we have to think about, and that's why we voted on. So, but I want to, have the council consider that before we put it on a joint rules and ordinance and planning board committee, because I'd rather have the discussion before, dragging the planning board into this. Thank you, great.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor O'Malley.
Councilor Winslow did a pretty good job of highlighting kind of where I'm feeling on this. These are very predatory business models. People put their things in here, as he was stating, death, divorce, displacement, and people put their stuff in there thinking that it's going to be temporary, and then it gets so onerous and difficult to move their stuff out that it stays there for a long time. And oftentimes people lose stuff because of that, because if you miss a month's payment, then they sell your stuff. It's just not the type of business that I think, and I know people who have lost like family heirlooms through this, and so it's just not the type of business model that I think we want to have in Malden. It is the lowest and worst use in my opinion. Higher and better uses would be commercial properties that bring jobs, housing, high quality development. And the other thing is, like, let's say you miss a payment and you want to try to like correct it. They never have anyone there. There's never anyone on site. It's like, if you actually want to try to pay your bill, or if you actually want to try to do anything, trying to get a hold of someone they intentionally make it almost impossible. So I can't support doing this, but I can definitely support having the conversation. I wouldn't want to prevent having this conversation. I just could not support expanding anything like this, because I think my hope would be some of these uses would turn over in the future to something that's actually bringing jobs and real tax revenue to the city of Malden. But I would never stifle the ability to have that conversation.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. So I had a chance to discuss this a little bit with Nelson earlier, and did some thinking on it as the chair of economic development, just to see what made sense. And while I'm not okay with more storage units, and that being the only business that we have, I do think we really need to take a look at how to manage the businesses that we have, and what's coming in and what we're getting for commercial taxes, and if there's a way to increase that using this. So I would like to see more of a conversation with this, whether it goes to ordinance and then to the planning board in that joint committee, or at economic development. But I don't think this is something that we want to just shoot down right away without looking at it further.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Luong.
Thank you. I look at this maybe a little bit on both sides, not to just be in the middle of the road. And I agree that we don't want more storage units, but both of these companies have been they're in our city. They pay taxes. They have, large amounts of property. And I feel like if we have the ability to let them expand their business, then I think it needs to be looked at before we say no and then we lose them.
Exactly.
I would love to lose them.
I mean, you would like to, but I think economically right now, we can't afford to lose that tax revenue. So do I think, I have the floor. My point is, I'm not thrilled to have more storage facilities, but I think we need to, keep what we have.
Thank you, Councilor Luong, and I'm sorry I talked over you as well. Councilor Crowe.
Thank you. And, you know, one of the businesses had reached out to me, and that's why I asked Nelson about that, if they were a business. And I do agree that we don't want, maybe not new ones, but as Mr. Miller just had mentioned it, we can craft it in a way, they are businesses that are already here, that want to do some expansion. Do we limit that in some way? I think we can do that. You know, maybe we don't want a lot of more big ones, but people that are, we do want to keep these businesses, and if we can grow some of their business for a tax base, then we need to at least have those conversations. But just saying absolutely no, when, again, we don't want them to be leaving the city, and then we'll just have an empty building. You know, it is a conversation to look at, to actually try to keep businesses in Malden and growing.
Thank you, Councilor Crowe. Councilor McDonald.
Oh, I have the same flavor of comment on the same thing, but I would just say I do think that it is, it's hard to dislodge storage facilities. The whole point is they're a room full of people's stuff, so it's like I don't worry about them leaving. That's the problem, actually, is it's very difficult to get them to leave because it's an easy business model and it is somewhat predatory and it doesn't create jobs, but it does create some taxes. So I just think they're good points. I'm open to the conversation about this. I haven't made up my mind. I do think, you know, Councilor, was your point about the U-Haul is a good example of a property that's in a corridor that we are likely targeting for development. And I think it's important to not make the problem worse, again, because it is hard to dislodge a storage facility. That may be different for other parts of the city where the zoning is different, where the thinking is different about what we hope to see. So, yeah, open to the conversation, trying to be fair to our businesses here.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Madam President. Listen, I'll be fair. I'll let it go to committee and I'll listen to it. And I feel the same way that Council Winslow and several other Council O'Malley feel about the same thing, is that, I just think that, once again, Malden always wants to sell itself short because it's the only game in town. I've got, nobody sat and talked to me. I like when the councilors up here sit and talk about, like, how they get aggravated when other councilors poke their noses into their wards and stuff. And it's been like a thing going on for like 100 years. I take it with a grain of salt because, it's good for some, but not good for others. Hostess happens to be in my ward. I actually got like 3 of them in my ward. And in a short corridor of Route 60. So, I don't know where they'd be able to expand to. I mean, they'd have to build up, and I don't know if I really want to build up high stories for storage facilities. They don't bring any jobs. They got like one person that works one shift, maybe 2 shifts out of the day. That's about it. So they don't bring any, I mean, it's warehouse rate revenue of tax base that we're bringing in, not the commercial or highway business type of tax base that we're looking to bring in to solve this problem. I don't know how many there are in Melrose, but I know there's not as many as there is in Malden. So, like I said, I'll talk about it because, and I do, I feel for Councilor Seeker a little bit because she does have a large corridor on Broadway, and I think she kind of missed the boat a little bit with the construction, not her fault, but, because of construction that went on over there, that it would have probably been a good area over there for a storage facility over there. But as far as I'm concerned, for my constituents in my neighborhood, I'd have to fight this thing tooth and nail and say absolutely not, because my neighborhood don't want it. They've had enough. It brings nothing to the community. And I've been looking at the Route 60 corridor, and I have said that for 16 years that I've been in office, I have been talking about Route 60 being the new mecca of businesses, for people to be, because people want easy access on and access off. All right, they don't want to come to Malden Square no more. I mean, the businesses that are there, the restaurants, they do okay, but you hear it all the time about parking and inconvenience. So they want, a place like a Route 60 that they can come off and on and be able to do some things. So I'm looking to do some serious development over there. And been talking with a lot of people that own a lot of buildings over there. from where the storage unit is, across from like where Honeydew is, all the way down to the police station. And we're talking about doing some like, you know, affordable housing, affordable home ownership, multi-dwelling type of lofts, and things like that, which I'd rather see something like that come in than just to have some open space that anybody from any city can come in and just store their stuff there and brings nothing to the neighborhoods. So, you know, again, I will, you know, I'll be fair and I'll listen to my colleagues and hear what they have to say about it. But like I said, you know, there's no room in my neighborhood for it to go up higher. And I'm going to tell you something, you know, the gloves are going to start to come off soon because I'm going to start going into other people's neighborhoods where they're having meetings and they have a controversial issue. And I'm going to step in on that and see how they feel real soon. So thank you, Council President. Thank you.
Can I just
Don't do it.
respond to that really quick?
Don't do it.
No, I'm going to,
Okay,
Councilor
I know you are.
Because I am not going into your ward, and I apologize if you think that I am, but did you hear me mention the old Hostess on Easton Ave and Linehurst Road in Ward 8 on the highway, on Bennett Highway? I never mentioned anything about Route 60. Hostess isn't your ward. I thought it was...
Okay, let's not
My
yell over
apologies,
each
I thought
other.
it was Ward 5.
Councilor Crowe, would you like to speak?
I would. It was, well, because Councilor
not what I thought we were doing.
Councilor Simonelli, I would have called you. Actually, I did reach out to Councilor Taylor because
You told me it was
I thought it was in Ward 5, and I said, you know, it's the Hostess, so just to kind of let her know. So if I had known it was in Ward 7, seems to be
I'm going to call the
a
vote
half.
if we don't stop yelling over each other. We're literally
Go
yelling
ahead,
about...
refer it to committee, refer it to committee. I make a motion to refer it
Do we wanna
to
refer it to-
ordinance, please.
All right, let's keep it really brief. Councilor Condon, thank you for your patience.
Oh, thank you. To be honest with you, this conversation is ridiculous, okay? Because the people that brought it up, they are run by like one person, all right? You get no jobs, they draw in rodents, okay? And if you ever had one in your ward, you know what I'm talking about. But just look at the size of that building on Eastern Ave and try to picture what could be there and how many jobs it could create. You're being short-sighted, people. You know, you really don't want those kind of businesses in your ward. You're not gonna throw them out, but, I mean, if I have anything to say about it, I know I went through it with Peg at the old Malden News, and we just didn't want it in the ward, you know, so, and if you do put it in your ward, believe me, you'll pay. You will pay the price, because people do not want it. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Condon. Okay, Councilor Cologne Hayes, this is going to be our
This is
last
going
and
to be
final
quick.
comment.
Yeah, no problem. I was going to say that I would, just to repeat, that this was not talking about anything new. So everybody just, anything new. And then if we refer it someplace else, I'd love to talk more just to see what we're talking about. Like, I don't even know how big of an expansion, where it is. I was trying to look up where you said the address just to see, because if we do talk about, like, allowing this, obviously nothing about new ones.
It would be by
Could we
special
have,
permit,
that's
just
what I
so
was
you
gonna say, by special permit, I was just typing that down, you said by special permit,
Or
and then maybe
expansion only.
if we could make sure that it also follows certain rules, like maybe an expansion no bigger than blah, 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 or, you know. Yeah, exactly, so I'm fine with passing that on, I wanna hear more about that, and just to make sure that it's not new, I just wanna clarify that with everybody. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I heard two different proposals, though. Someone had said, oh, I'm sorry, Nelson, I didn't see that.
I just wanted to clarify, because
Yes,
from some of the
please
comments
do.
I heard, I get the impression that maybe everyone feels like I'm a member of the Self-Storage Facility Society of America or something like that. I'm just here to answer zoning questions, so We brought up Melrose for some reason, I don't know, but I'm not advocating for this. I'm just here to answer questions, that's all.
We appreciate it.
Motion to refer this to ordinance.
Okay, so I did hear a proposal to send this to economic development, though. Are we sending this to ordinance or economic
I would
development?
like to send it to ordinance.
Okay, do I have a second to send it to ordinance? Okay. On a motion by Councilor Sika, seconded by Councilor Simonelli to send it to ordinance committee. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
Was that two people that said no?
I'm actually going to vote no as well. Do we need to revote that? Are we good? Winslow, Condon, and Linehan are no. And it's not joint planning, it's just ordinance.
So that would be an 8-3 vote. It was referred to ordinance.
Thank you. Next order of business.
Next paper is 199-26, Committee Report, the Standing Committee on Finance, to whom was referred paper 160, Series of 2026, having considered the same. Make the following report. Committee recommends this paper out favorably to the full council.
Okay, on a motion by Councilor McDonald, seconded by Councilor Taylor to receive the committee report, all in favor? Aye. Committee report is received.
Paper 160-26, order that $398,674.25 is appropriated from available water sewer enterprise fund retained earnings to fund principal-only debt payments due to the MWRA in May 2026.
Okay, Councilor McDonald for the committee report.
Yes, this is an appropriation to pay the bills that we owe. We have in the past regularly authorized loans and lines of credit from the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority. They are the ones, of course, who supply our water. Most of this appropriation is for all kinds of just standard water replacement work that has to happen. And a subset of it is for lead pipe replacement. As folks may remember, we have a specific lead service line loan that is zero interest and great terms. So there's a portion of this that is lead service lines, but that's not the majority. So it's to authorize the payment of the loans that we had already authorized us to take out from the fund. This does not clean out the fund. There's still a few $100,000 left in the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. And so we had a quick and easy discussion about this in the Finance Committee and unanimously recommended approval of this order.
Okay, any questions? I see Councilor O'Malley.
I just wanted to confirm, so this doesn't have to do anything with paying the Tufts situation?
This is not related to the Tufts situation.
But does this replace, so this is a completely separate thing that we had to pay regardless?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we use the earnings from the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund for multiple purposes. This is one we have historically often done, is borrow money at a good rate from the MWRA, use it to finance capital improvements, and pay it back with the retained earnings in the fund.
And is there a reason why this isn't appropriated during the annual budget, but we're doing it mid-year?
There are timings of when these payments are due, and also it doesn't impact the city's bottom line, so it's not something that I would expect to need to consider as part of the annual budget. It's not an operating expense.
But we do know when it would come in regularly, like these are...
We didn't ask that question. I didn't hear anybody ask that question in the Finance Committee about when were the invoices incurred. It's been a normal in the course of business kind of appropriation and payment in the past because it's from a restricted fund that is restricted for this purpose. And so there were no concerns about the timing. As I said, it's not an operating expense. It's a one-time capital kind of expense to pay back loans we already authorized.
And I appreciate you answering the questions. I think it's just something that we need to start now asking, like, how many times are we expecting to see this payment come in every year? And then I think we should be able to say, okay, if we expect to see it every quarter, then, during the annual budget, we should be knowing that we're appropriating the appropriate amount. It could be a cash flow issue Maybe it's that we don't have the money in the water and sewer account when we're doing the annual budget to actually appropriate it that far in advance, and we need to wait for people to pay their water rates. That could be the reason why.
My understanding from the controller is that the reason that we don't appropriate is because we don't know how much to pay, and we don't want to give a blanket authorization to pay. We wait until we get the invoices, then we authorize payment of the invoices.
Great. I appreciate you talking me through this.
Okay, thank you, Counselor O'Malley. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no other lights, we have a motion by Counselor McDonald, seconded by Counselor Simonelli to adopt the order, and we need a roll call.
Counselor Cologne Hayes? Yes. Counselor Condon?
Yes.
Counselor Crowe? Yes. Counselor Luong?
Yes.
Counselor McDonald?
Yes.
Counselor O'Malley? Yes. Counselor Seega?
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli? Counselor Taylor?
Yes.
Counselor Winslow?
Yes.
Council President Linehan?
Yes.
That order has been adopted by a unanimous vote.
Okay, next order of business.
Paper 200-26, order that the City Council will vote whether to go into executive session with legal counsel for the city for the purpose of Exemption 3, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of discussing strategy as to possible future litigation related to budgetary constraints, where such discussion in open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the city if so declared by the chair, and if so allowed by the body to omit Special Assistant to the Mayor Marie Louise, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer Ronald Hogan, and the Honorable Mayor Gary Christensen.
Okay, I see a couple of lights. Do we have questions on this? All right, Counselor, I have a lot of lights. Counselor Seega.
Thank you, Council President. So after hearing a bunch of back and forth on this particular agenda item, out of abundance of caution, I am asking that we table this paper until we dot our i's and cross our t's to make sure that the wording of it is appropriate for what we need to do. So I'm making a motion to table executive session for this evening.
Okay, that takes precedence. We can't take discussion, or we can?
You can take discussion, but
Okay.
it takes precedence over any other motion.
Okay, I'll take Counselor Winslow next.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, what Counselor Seeka has raised, I think we should also think, the question I would have is to, even if we get the language, I would want to know that either there's some sort of correspondence we've received related to potential litigation, or, someone is filing a notice of a lawsuit. The voters just voted against raising taxes. And we really need to make sure we're transparent and build trust, and to have maybe the first discussions being in executive session. I don't know if that really sits well. So I'm kind of almost leaning not to have this discussion in executive session. So it's something we have to think about. So that's my concern, that we actually need to work with our, the mayor, our staff through their unions, but we need to make sure that the public has a view of that. They just the situation the city is in, they're looking over our shoulders. And trust is something that came up several times as we were talking about, the mayor being presented and Mohammed presenting. Trust, building trust. We may need to have these discussions out in the open so people do not think that there's something happening behind the thing. So that's my comment, that it's something that, when this comes back up next week or whatever, we should be able to hear those answers of that. We can make up reasons to try to have these discussions outside of a public session, but we may not want to. That's an option, and we may not want to as a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Winslow. Counselor O'Malley.
Yeah, it's a delicate balancing act. What Councilor Winslow is referring to, is if we are defending against litigation. It gets a little bit more complicated if we're talking about initiating litigation. I know we've in the past talked about, it's not fair with Chapter 70. Should we be suing DESE? Is there a proposal to sue the unions? I have no idea what this is about, and I would like to know going in, at least some basic information so I can prepare and at least be able to field some questions that people are asking. And so I don't know what this is about. It's very broad. And obviously, we have to be careful what we broadcast, but I think there's a way to add a little bit more information so we know roughly what we're going in to talk about, or at least roughly what it has to do with. I'm not saying to air litigation strategy, but I think everyone knows that I don't think we would be upset to sue Desi. That's not a secret. I think Desi knows that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Cologne Hayes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I had similar questions. I had reached out to the council president, clerk, and I was already saying I was going to vote no to go into executive session just because I don't know what we're talking about. And without more information, I don't know whether or not it deserves to go into executive session. I was told, so I give it, that we have done this in the past, so I'm going to give that up. We had done this, I can't even say what it was about, but we did go in the past, I almost said it. We did go into executive session with similar wording. But I question that now for the exact reasons that I'm hearing my counselors too. At the time, maybe I thought that was okay. I don't think that's okay now. And so our conversations need to be held in public, before the public, as much as possible. So I did second a tabling vote, but I don't know what happened there, so we'll just
We'll take
go
it up
around.
after discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cologne Hayes. Councilor McDonald.
I certainly, of course, agree. We need to have budget discussions in public. I don't think this is a budgeting discussion. It's a litigation discussion, and I also don't know what it is, which, frankly, I would like to go into executive session to hear what it is the topic. We have a chicken and egg problem. We can't talk about the thing, we can't talk about it, but we can't talk about talking about it either because we're not in executive session. So I would just want to know what we're talking about. I think if we could go into executive session, then we could talk about it. And then if we were like, we should do this in open session, we could adjourn executive session and come back and do it in open session. And that would be our judgment. But right now, I feel like we're having an argument with phantoms because we can't go into executive session and hear what it is that the administration wants to bring to our attention. So I'm in favor of at least hearing what the topic is and then deciding if we want to proceed.
We have a tabling motion.
We have a tabling motion, so I will vote against tabling right now because I would like to know what the topic is, and then it's not a motion. I can't make a motion because tabling takes precedence. If the tabling motion fails, then we could have the opportunity to hear what the topic is and decide whether we would like to discuss it in executive session. If we table it, I don't know where that leaves us, I guess, trying to further get more info, except that if we can't get more info because it's appropriate for executive session, we will be right back here in a week.
Reword it.
So I don't know that rewording, my perspective is rewording this because people are concerned about the docketing of this. If we've already done this before, is it okay if I ask our legal?
Yeah, the language comes from legal, but I'm happy to invite legal
can I ask our legal
to come to the
representative to say,
podium.
do you have any concerns about the docketing of this? Because
They did docket it.
you did docket it. Has anything changed your judgment about whether this is an appropriately docketed item? Because if the docketing is the problem, yes, we should fix it.
Yeah.
But if the issue is we don't know whether this issue is appropriate for executive session, I don't know how we find that out until we go into executive session.
Thank you, Ally. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Alicia McNeil, I'm the city solicitor. I didn't hear the entire discussion. I was in the back, so.
I'm sorry, my question was just, I know that the legal department docketed this issue. Since you docketed it, have you had any concerns about whether we should be revising it, or does it still seem properly docketed to you?
It seems properly docketed to me.
Okay, so that's not a thing we can fix because it's not a problem, because it's properly docketed. So anyways, that's what I think.
Solicitor McNeil, we have a motion on the floor to table this item because the councilors have asked if the description is sufficiently specific enough, and I've explained that the clerk and I have received this from the mayor's office, and that this language has undergone review from your office, and that it's identical to similar litigation discussions that we've undertaken in the past year I think we've been as specific as we can related to future potential litigation.
Yes.
It's not related to discussing the budget.
Yes, and I've checked with determinations with the Secretary of State, and I'm comfortable with the language that we proposed.
And that if we do not discuss, if we convene an executive session and we, to Councilor McDonald's question, and we decide that it's information that we would prefer to discuss in open session, may we do that? Or is that something that we would have to determine once we're in executive session, if that's appropriate or not?
I don't actually know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't actually know the answer to that.
Okay, that's helpful. We could redocket it for next week. Okay. Okay. We actually still have a lot of lights to get through before we can take the vote on the tabling motion. Thank you for answering those. I'm going to take Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. Does anybody think that it's right that Revere and Everett should get $20 million more than the city of Malden, Chapter 70? No?
Is this related to the tabling motion?
Well, I'd like to tell you. I'd like to tell you because I don't think it's fair either. And we've talked about the city of Malden getting screwed by those reps and senators up in the State House. And we all know that the formula is messed up, really messed up. But nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to point fingers at the higher-ups. So, you know, we're going to just go down a road that if we're not willing to fight or push forward and let people know that it's wrong, and it is wrong, then we get nothing. So I'm in favor of it, any way you want to talk about it, because everybody says, yeah, I know the formula is wrong. Well, no one wants to do anything about it. We're the losers.
You really can't say that.
What?
I was asking Councilor Simonelli to keep it down.
Okay.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Condon. Councilor O'Malley for the second time.
Yeah, and I agree with Councilor Condon. I want to have that conversation anywhere. And if we're talking about suing Desi, I think we can talk about that out here. Obviously, we shouldn't be talking about litigation strategy specifically, but it's not a secret that the city of Malden is pissed and wants to sue Desi. And so I don't know what we could possibly say that would hurt our litigation strategy, having that conversation in public. And I think it would actually build a lot of trust and a lot of confidence that we're doing something as a city rather than having it behind the scenes. So in hindsight, Councilor Sika, I probably won't support the tabling motion, but I would vote not to go into executive session with the hopes of having that conversation here in open session. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Simonelli. Oh, hang on one second. You're all set? Okay. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I don't know if Solicitor McNeil heard the questions that I was raising about my kind of confusion about what's here. So, you know, specifically what I asked was, have we received either any correspondence or notice saying that there may be potential litigation against the city because of our, the future litigation due to budget constraints? Has anybody communicated to your office, to the mayor's office, and is that why we're meeting? Or is it a proactive thing? I guess that's just, to me, that is the type of thing that, what is this just something we're thinking of, or is it something we're having to react to? And what is the likelihood of that happening? I mean, is there actually been a lawsuit filed? I mean, that's the type of thing of, it's speculative. That's the thing that gets me. So that's.
Oh, did you turn your light off? Hang on.
Sorry.
Okay.
So there has been no communication from my office to anyone. I can't speak for the mayor's office. I guess if you all didn't receive any communication, then there hasn't been any.
But has anybody?
Oops, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Has anybody communicated to you or the mayor, like any union or other entity, communicated a threat of litigation or filed any written thing? I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is this something that we're anticipating litigation?
Are we reacting or
against us? Are we
initiating?
reacting or are we being proactive? That is what I'm asking.
Let me see if I can answer that question without,
I don't think you can.
we're being proactive, not reactive.
Are you all set? Okay. Okay. I have Counselor Luong, last but not least.
So I'm just going to echo what, Counselor McDonald said. I think it's not a matter of trust to the public. I think it's in any potential litigation on our part, being proactive or reactive. I think as a council, we should step out, find out what it's about, decide what we want to do, and then come back out. It's not time for being secret. It's just, I don't think it's a correct what's the word I want to use? Precedent to set, to decide. If we don't know, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So I'd like to go back, find out what we're going to talk about, and then decide, should it be for the public's, let's talk about it in public or not.
Thank you, Counselor Luong. And I'll just say from the chair, this is in an attempt to be respectful of folks' repeated requests that we have more executive session and that we are involved in as much decision-making process as possible with respect to litigation. And that sometimes the language here is necessarily not as descriptive as folks might like, but again, modeled after many other instances where we've had to just be as specific as we can, and it's you find out more when you get into the session, and then that's the intent of the executive session. The clerk and I, again, not to be repetitive, but went over this many, many times over the weekend, and I'm comfortable with the language as it stands. But we do have a motion to table. That motion was made by Councilor Sika. Do we have a second? Councilor Cologne-Hayes. So we need to call the roll for that?
On the motion to table. Councilor Cologne-Hayes? Yes. Yes. Councilor Condon? No. No. Councilor Crowe?
No.
No. Councilor Luong? No. No. Councilor McDonald? No. No. Councilor O'Malley? No. No. Councilor Sika?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Simonelli? No. No. Councilor Taylor? No. No. Councilor Winslow?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Linehan?
No.
No. Okay, so the paper has not been tabled.
Okay, so therefore, citing exemption 3 on Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, wherein discussing paper 200-26 in open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the city's litigating position, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session. So moved by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Luong. The clerk will now call the roll.
Councilor Cologne-Hayes? No. No. Councilor Condon?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Luong?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McDonald?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor O'Malley? No. No. Councilor Sika?
No.
No. Councilor Simonelli? Yes. Yes. Councilor Taylor?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Winslow? No. No. Council President Linehan?
Yes.
Yes. So the order to enter into executive session has passed
Okay.
by 7-4 vote.
Passes 7-4. So we will enter executive session. Do we want to have personal privilege prior to entering executive session? Okay, I see Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I'm just going to hand out Maplewood Fest. I have the initial flyer here, Saturday, May 16th. So just encouraging people, we have more crafters that are coming in, and we're going to have a puppy parade, and we're going to have a couple local bands. So just want to spread that word. So I'll hand this out to everybody as we're going into executive session. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor O'Malley.
I just want to announce that Saturday, April 18th, There's going to be a cleanup at Waits Mat with the Great Malden Outdoors and myself. This is something we do annually, and it's going to be at 10 a.m. Hopefully the weather will be great. It's rain or shine. Doing park cleanups and planting trees is, one of my most favorite things, genuinely, and so we're going to be doing both. Additionally, I just want to address, earlier in the night, there was some talk about rewriting the Chapter 6 portion of our marijuana ordinance, and I just wanted to clarify, the reason why DRIS was coming up was because that 5th license, I believe, is the license that is being proposed to be taken away from DRIS. So I think the reason why we were talking about that is because it has to do with DRIS. And I apologize if I went over the line, but I, as mentioned, will send everything I can to yourself, legal, and the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Taylor.
Thank you. Really quickly, April 25th is the citywide yard sale. We have almost 50 people signed up in over 3 locations, over 35 locations. So 3 of them being multiple people at the Forestdale School, the BB School, and the ELC, and then at individual houses, sorry, it's late. I've got too many words in my head. So we hope that you'll join us between 8 and 2. The coffee cart will be at BB, I believe, between 7:30 and 1. So you can start there, make your way across the city. There'll be lots of great finds. And there is a extensive map and detailed list on Facebook, and also will be getting posted. And I need to just say that this is something that I help with, but really it's been my constituent, Marlene Gala, who has put this all together, taken on the brunt of it. She has done an amazing job from starting this last year in Ward 5, and I'm so excited to go to every location this year and hopefully not come home with more than what I need. So.
Book yourself a donation truck to come pick it up the next day. That's what I'm doing. Well, from the chair, I'll wrap us up. I am so honored to be announcing that our very own Dinah Fajardo, our elections administrator from the city clerk's office, is going to be honored at this year's North Shore Hispanic Association 2026 Americans Making a Difference Gala on April 30th, which Councilor Cologne Hayes had updated us on last week. So just a little bit about Dinah. Prior to accepting a full-time position as the elections administrator for the city, she served the voters of Malden for 7 years running elections as the precinct warden at the Ferryway School. Last year, Dinah was recipient of the 2025 Latino Excellence Award sponsored by the Black and Latino Legislative Caucus, and she's helped lead the clerk's office in earning consecutive A ratings on Malden's bilingual voting rights report card in both 2024 and 2025's election cycles. Dinah is an essential member of our clerk's team, and I am so happy to take this opportunity to highlight the great work that she does for Malden's constituency. So with that, the council will now enter into executive session, and the body will not reconvene for any further business this evening, so we will adjourn directly from executive session. Thank you and good evening. Oh, thank you. That's adorable.
Coming together. Don't worry.
Oh, that's cute. What is this? We did this. Wow, that's
Okay, so we are at 8:54 p.m.